Welcome, everyone. This is Mike Dotterer, and you're on Champions on the Dot. And what a great show we have for you today. I am so excited because I'm going to introduce someone that is, in my opinion, a legend at this great background here. This is the background of Stanford University. That's our church, Memorial Church. We call it MEMCHU. And this man that I'm going to introduce, not only but his family are just legendary when it comes to Stanford University. So I'm just honored to have him on the dot. And we call it Champions on the Dot because he's certainly a champion. So without getting into his background yet, I want to put a shout out to some of the birthdays today. Some of my friends, Jill Watson, and Jill was she's in Utah, and Jill was one of the first to be one of the what they call them mogul bumps and jumps, and she paved the way, and it's her birthday today. So happy birthday, Jill Watson! Happy birthday to Madeline Sharon, my friend in Florida who's from New York, and she was in the fashion industry. Happy birthday, Madeline! Happy 29th birthday, right? Okay. Barbara Jordan, one of the great Stanford tennis players, won the French Open doubles, was an All-American, three-time All-American tennis player at Stanford. Happy birthday to Barbara Jordan. She's in the Stanford Hall of Fame. Happy birthday to Kimberly Belton. It's his birthday today. Another great Stanford player, basketball player. Maybe John, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but maybe our guest might talk a little bit about Kimberly Belton. Great basketball player. And then happy birthday to John Gall, Stanford All-American. It's amazing, all these Stanford people's birthdays today. And he went on to play major leagues, and John's in the Stanford Hall of Fame as a baseball player. Happy birthday to John. And happy birthday to Ross Ricks, who's the head of the Raider Nation Golf Club. And he's got this organization where he brings all the former Raiders in to raise money for charity. So happy birthday, Ross. Okay, well, without further ado, I am just amazed. I started looking up this gentleman that I'm going to bring on, this legend. I looked up his background, and it's just amazing. I mean, he did something that I can't think of anybody, and he'll talk about it. He played varsity basketball and varsity football. And I say basketball because I want him to talk about what's going on in the March Madness this week. It's amazing. And I'm sure he coached basketball. His sister coaches basketball. And without further ado, I'm going to bring him on. But there's so much that I want to share with you. But it's really Champions on the Dot, and this is about John Paye. So, John, thank you for coming on the dot, my friend. How are you?
Thank you, Mike. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, John, you have such an amazing career, and I got it wrong. I said Menlo-Atherton. You went to the Menlo School, correct?
Right. Atherton actually has three high schools. They have Menlo-Atherton, which is a public high school. They have Menlo School, which has been around since 1915. And they have a Catholic school, Sacred Heart Prep. So a small community with three high schools is kind of a lot.
And a great sports tradition. Why don't you talk about your mom and dad? I mean, I don't think you're like Jim Rutter. I mean, I don't think your grandparents went to Stanford. It started with your mom and dad, right?
Actually, my dad's dad, Paul Paye, he went to Stanford and got his master's degree there.
There we go. And so you're like Jim. I mean, you went to Stanford. You and your sister went to Stanford. Your mom and dad went to Stanford, and your grandfather went to Stanford.
Correct. And I have two sisters that went to Stanford. So it was me, then Amy Paye, my oldest sister, and then Kate Paye, who's been on the coaching staff for the last 19 years for Stanford women's basketball.
Wow. Well, then, let's talk about your family, where you grew up. Your dad was a running back. Here's two cheers for running backs. Why don't you talk about your family?
Sure. My dad went to Stanford. He was a football player. Interestingly, later in life, I found out that his running backs coach at Stanford was Bill Walsh. And I grew up going to Stanford athletic events, football, basketball, baseball games, and just kind of grew up around the community. I actually was born at Stanford Hospital, and both my sisters were born at Stanford Hospital as well. I've always lived within 5 miles of the hospital, and got just a great opportunity for me to live in this community because I was able to go to high school at Menlo School, which is in Atherton, and then went to Stanford and then I went played for the 49ers. So I always lived right here. My two sisters, they had to kind of go different places, but they're back here in town now. My mom passed away 10 years ago, and I do a kind of in her memory, I do a colorectal cancer awareness event, which is a celebrity golf. So it was a celebrity golf tournament the last 4 years during COVID, but we're doing our normal celebrity fashion show on May 2nd at Stanford Park Hotel. So the Pays revolve around Stanford for sure.
Well, I'm just looking here, John. You obviously you were a great player at Menlo, the Menlo School, and you were recruited. How many schools recruited you out of high school?
Yes, actually, I'm out here on the patio. There's, I guess, San Carlos Airport is a little closer by than I realized. But yes, if your question was about being recruited, I went to Menlo School. I was recruited for football and also basketball there, and I got to play my first year with Paul Wiggin, who I think also coached you, Dot, and I also got to play with Dr. Tom Davis on the basketball team. So 1983 was a big kind of year for me in my sports career, and I was had a lot of honors and kind of neat. If I can just run through them real quickly for you, I was Max Preps or USA Today Player of the Year in football, and then a little bit later, I was named that in January of 1983, and then about 2 months later, my high school basketball team won the state basketball championship against Santa Clara Oxnard. And then a little bit later in June of 1983, I got drafted by the San Francisco Giants as a shortstop. And then moving on in 83, I was able to play my freshman year at Stanford. I started in 8 of the games. And I got to throw my first touchdown pass against Oklahoma at Stanford Stadium, where I grew up watching the Cardinal play. I threw it to Mike Tolliver Mike kind of ran the wrong route, but it was, I think it was like green left, 3-jet, flanker short post. And Mike thought that he was going to be open going to the corner. So he did a post corner, but I found him. So that was a thrill. Again, in 1983. And then later that year in 1983, I was a starter on the Stanford basketball team and got to play at home against Michael Jordan when North Carolina came to town. So 1983 was kind of my highlight of my athletic career in terms of just experiences, all these wonderful things. I also got to play, it wasn't 1983, but I got to play down at Paye Pavilion in front of John Wooden. That was actually in January. And I scored 13 points with John Wooden in the stands. So one of our family traditions was that for a while was my dad loves wine, and he'd buy the 1983 Opus One. And I don't think you can even drink that anymore because I think it's too old. But we had plenty of nights drinking the Opus One to celebrate that year of 1983.
Wow. I did not know, John, that you were drafted by the major leagues. I had no idea. You're just, I mean, you're like the Forrest Gump of sports for Stanford. I've never heard anything like it. It's amazing.
All right. Well, thanks, Dot. Thanks for giving me the platform to talk about it.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I'm looking here. Your freshman year, you had your coach your freshman year in basketball was Dr. Tom Davis. And some of the players you might want to talk, you played with the great Keith Jones. You played with John Ravelli, Steve Brown, Earl Koberline, Andy Fisher, Hans Washari, Kent Seymour, Ricky Lewis, a good friend of mine, Ricky, and John Platts, the voice of the color man for the Stanford Cardinal. What was that like? You just mentioned you played against Michael Jordan, and then John Wooden watched you play in Paye. What was that like? It must have been amazing.
Well, it was really exciting. So when I grew up, things were a little bit more standard. The Pac-12, or actually I grew up Pac-8, Pac-10, or whatever it was at the time, but they would play Thursday and Saturday. It was pretty consistent. The biggest weekend, growing up in the 70s, was when UCLA basketball and USC came to town. So there would be Thursday, Saturday, and it was always sold out. And I got to experience that same thing my freshman year with those teammates. I actually started the game when UCLA played at Stanford with Keith. I was a point guard, and Keith Jones was the off guard. John Ravelli was our center. They liked me because I could always throw it into John Ravelli, who was our leading scorer. But we got to beat UCLA, sold out. I know firsthand that Maples Pavilion back then held 7,500, and I don't even remember the last time Stanford's had a sellout for men's basketball, but we won. Everybody rushed the court, and to experience that same thing that I watched growing up when Stanford beat UCLA maybe one other time or two other times in the 70s. I remember watching Kimberly Belton. I don't think I'm not sure if Kimberly's team beat UCLA, but that definitely was a thrill for me.
Well, I'm looking here the next year, because I don't want to leave anyone out. Here the next year, you had let's see, Keith Ramey, Eric Reveneau was on that team the next year. That was his freshman year. Charles Hunt, and that was again, that was Dr. Tom Davis, and you guys went. You went 11-17, and then the next year, 85-86, Dr. Tom Davis again, and you guys got fifth in the Pac-10, and you had Todd Lichty. Now there's one of the great players. What was it like to play with Todd?
Well, yeah, Todd was one of the first players that I played with that was very good ambidextrous-wise and could jump. I remember we were anticipating him coming into the team because we saw a videotape of him as a senior in high school jamming two basketballs at once, which was pretty remarkable for a white kid from the East Bay. But I can't say enough, Dot, about how much I support Northern California or California athletes, specifically Northern California. We weren't always so happy with the people from Southern California who we had to compete against, but with Todd being a great basketball player from the East Bay, was very fortunate to play with him, as well as Howard Wright, was also the same year as Todd. And those were two guys that eventually went on to the NBA. Yeah,
I'm looking at Howard Wright. Let's see here. Another shout out to Brian McSweeney, who's a Phi Alpha. Brian's a fraternity brother of mine. He was on that team your last year. And then what's interesting, John, you decided to focus, I guess, on football because the next year, the legendary Mike Montgomery came in. And tell us what happened your senior year, because I know, and by the way, just to let everyone know, there's John Elway and there's John Paye. John Paye, at that time, you were the number 2 quarterback in Stanford football history. I mean, your statistics in football, go ahead and talk about football, but you that your senior year, you decided not to play with Mike Montgomery, and go ahead and share your thoughts.
Well, yes, unfortunately, my junior year, I ended up separating my shoulder against the dreaded USC Trojans. So I struggled with a shoulder during the last half of my junior year. And then I went right into basketball, right into basketball, played my junior year. But by the summer of my senior year, I ended up strung together 4 straight shoulder operations over the next 3 years. So in any case, yeah, I ended up having a major shoulder reconstruction during my senior year in December after the regular football season for Stanford. So that's why I didn't play basketball that senior year. It's kind of amazing watching some of our players play now at Stanford. Hannah jumps on the women's basketball team. I think she just finished her 6th year. It's amazing how many years they have been able to string together and continue their eligibility.
Well, by the way, happy belated birthday to you too, John. You just turned 29 March 30th?
That's right. 29 plus 30, 59.
Well, you look great. I have to wear this hat, to see my hair.
Oh my goodness. What happened?
Well, this is what happens when you get I'm 63 years young, so I put the hat on. I got my Stanford. That's for you, brother. But I'm just looking here. I mean, it's just amazing what you've done. I mean, basketball and football. I can't think. Is there anyone out there in the history of college athletics how many people did that? Very few did that.
Well, kind of before I did that at Stanford, I know Quinn Buckner was the guy that I remember watching growing up. He was a football, basketball player at Indiana. Probably the most successful one that I'm kind of aware of was Charlie Ward, who did it at Florida State and also won a Heisman Trophy for the Florida State Seminoles. So it's a lot harder today just because the seasons go so long. It used to be, whether I was playing growing up, it was always football, basketball, baseball. There were seasons. Now, with all of these club programs and these different sports, you can play all year round. So it's too kind of, I think it's too hard to try to do 3 sports again, like I did, or for that matter, try to do 2 sports, just because there's so much pressure on you to play, full time.
Well, you said you got drafted by the White Sox. I didn't even know that. Did Coach Mark Marquis, did he say, "Hey, John, can come out and play baseball"?
Well, actually, you know what? I didn't get drafted by the White Sox, but we do have a great Stanford guy that I think is still in charge of the White Sox. Is what's our wide receiver that is the general manager for the White Sox? What was his name?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I will get that for you.
But anyway, I didn't get drafted by the Giants, so I'm pretty much locally born and bred and drafted. So I was drafted in the '83 draft. Interestingly, I competed against KJ Kevin Johnson in both baseball and basketball growing up, and then competed against him when he played at Cal. But he did not play baseball. While he was
Kenny Williams,
great athlete from San Jose, Northern California guy. We like our Northern California athletes, Mike, but he's a great one.
Yeah, Kenny was a great. We returned punch scores.
I remember his football uniform. I think it was number 9. He returned kickoffs.
Yep. He was in that famed game where our band came on the field. Any event, so. Amazing career, and then you get drafted by the 49ers. So Bill Walsh, who coached your father, he drafts you with the 49ers. What was it like to be part of a Super Bowl team? What was that like?
Well, Mike, for me, I talk a lot about kind of timing with my career with the 49ers, kind of right in the middle of their run as team of the 80s. So I was on the Super Bowl 23 team, which was our 3rd Super Bowl. So with all of the promotional stuff the 49ers do with their players, I've got to meet and hang out with all this whole genre of players that started the success in 1981 when they won Super Bowl 16. So obviously, some of the older guys. I remember Charlie Young was tight end. I worked with him all the way up through their last Super Bowl when was number 29 with Deion Sanders on that team, or Steve Young. So great, great community, great host of people. What I've learned is, winners are winners on and off the field, and that translates to championships. So and obviously that started with Coach Walsh and Mr. DeBartolo. So I'm very, very fortunate to grow up, be raised in the same community, and play with the San Francisco 49ers. Because as you know, Mike, there's football, and then there's everything else in sports.
Right. Well, it used to be America's pastime. Baseball was but the football, American football, has surpassed that. Well, and by the way, we got to talk about your sister in women's basketball. What an exciting time it is right now. And our Stanford team, women's team, they almost made it to the Final Four. Talk about your sister. I mean, she's a legend in her, just talk about the women's basketball and the popularity. I mean, last night I watched the Iowa game. It was the highest rating of a women's basketball game ever.
Well, Kate, my youngest sister, she was a lot like me. She grew up watching her brother and other sports at Stanford. And she was a star high school basketball player at Menlo School. I was able to coach her 4 years while she was there, and we won 3 state championships with her. She had an opportunity to get a scholarship at Cal Berkeley, but decided to accept her application as a student to Stanford and to walk on the Stanford basketball team. She showed up at Stanford, the very first event. They were taking team pictures, and she was like in one picture. Then they were like, "Okay, Kate, you're out." There's a couple of others. Walk-on players, you're out too. We don't know if you're going to make the team. So she started at ground zero, and soon she earned a spot on the team as well as a scholarship, and did a great job helping Stanford win their national championship her freshman year in 1992. Their big game was that year was the semifinal against. They were against. Who were they? Well, they played against Don Staley, and I forget. Don Staley was with maybe it was Maryland. But anyways, Don Staley, the coach of South Carolina, she kind of held her in check. Stanford won that game and ended up beating, I think, Western Kentucky for the national championship. And Kate has parlayed her basketball playing skills and playing in the WNBA, and then went into coaching. So she just finished, I think it's either her 18th or 19th year at Stanford women's basketball, where she now has 2 national championship rings and 10 Final Four rings. So it's amazing what Tara Vanderveer and Stanford women's hoops have done to our community. In fact, I still talk about the fact that Stanford women's basketball outdraw the men now at Maples Pavilion.
Yeah. Tara is right there with the John Wooden. You mentioned, you played in front of John Wooden. I mean, Tara Vanderveer is just a legend. And, I credit to you, Tara, and your sister, Kate. And by the way, Kate, guess what Kate and I have in common?
Your birthday? Same birthday?
No. Kate's birthday is March 6th. I'm December 14th, but Kate did the same thing I did. She was recruited by Harvard, Dartmouth, and Princeton, but she turned down Harvard, and I also turned down Harvard. So there you go. That's
wow. I didn't know you got accepted by Harvard. Okay, I didn't get accepted by Harvard, so congratulations.
Okay. Well, my dad went to Syracuse. My dad was a Major League Baseball player. Went to Syracuse in the early 50s, and God's school back then was Harvard. When you're in the East Coast, if your son or daughter goes to Harvard, back then it was like, so
didn't Jim Brown go to Syracuse?
Yep, Jim Brown, Floyd Little, Ernie Davis, Larry Zonka. I mean, a lot of great running backs went to Syracuse. But
I think I haven't checked the schedule, but has Stanford football playing Syracuse this coming year?
Yeah, in Syracuse. Yeah, and I'm going to be there at the Dome. I'm going to be there.
Okay, all right.
And John, if you want to come out, I got a place for you.
Okay, well, yeah, I think Syracuse, didn't they steal our S logo?
They did. You know what? They do have a very similar S. Very similar. Yep. They did. By the way, a shout out to Gary Cavalli, because your sister, she played for the ABL, and I believe Gary was it was instrumental in helping start the ABL, which is now the WNBA, right?
Yes, I know. Some local guys other local people were involved in that. Jennifer Azee and Joe Laka, before he bought the Warriors, was a investor in the San Jose Lasers and the ABL.
Wow. Well, going back to your 49er experience, there's an iconic picture of you. And you talk about amazing. There you are with your, in your uniform, it says Paye. And on the right is Bill Walsh. In the background is Steve Young. And to your left is Joe Montana. I mean, come on. I mean, I guess just the best of the best.
Yeah, it's kind of the story on that picture. I didn't know it existed until when Bill Walsh died. I think it was 2005. That picture was on the front page of the LA Times. So that's how I was aware of it. And in any case, I know to be in a picture with those 3 guys, it was pretty special for me.
Well, you're amazing, John. I mean, and not only your basketball and football career and played baseball in high school, I didn't know, and your sister and your mom and your dad and your other sister and your grandfather. But talk about what I like to talk about is your coaching, because you, after your professional career, you dove right in and were one of the most successful girls basketball coaches in California state history. Talk about your success with coaching girls basketball.
Well, kind of an interesting backstory in that I was with the 49ers my rookie year. Um, Steve Young, me, Joe Montana were on strike, and I was asked by the athletic director at Menlo School if I would like to help out with my sister's high school basketball team there. And at that time, Steve Young was living with me and my family. We actually lived underneath my mom's roof, that she cooked us dinner every night. And we had kind of family dinner with Steve. And a lot of times we would talk about the basketball practice we just had with the girls at Menlo, including Kate. So that was a long time ago, and I caught the bug of coaching girls basketball, which was very, very special, just because what I liked about it was the girls were very open to being taught and learning new things and appreciative. And I ended up coaching another 29 years in high school girls basketball. So pretty neat, pretty to have kind of an effect on so many different young people. Being a coach or a mentor to them has been very special.
Well, you're very modest. You know, humility is the greatest virtue, and I just want to say I have to you coached boys basketball and girls basketball, and you were CIF champions. You were the state champions, right?
Yeah, actually, I don't have my championship ring on, but I have a state basketball championship as a player, and then 4 state basketball championships CIF as a coach. So I know the coaching and being kind of the head guy at a very young age. I just enjoyed it, and I kind of miss it right now. I'm doing real estate full time, but I do watch my sister's games at Stanford, and just to have so many people kind of out there that kind of tap me on the shoulder, Coach Paye, and then I reconnect with one of my players, and it is pretty neat.
Well, and by the way, I couldn't help but, because I heard through the grapevine you and Toy Cook are working with Steve Young, and this is a sport. I'll tell you, just between you and me, this is what got me started loving American football. When I was a little kid living in Orinda, California, and there was a guy named Harley Miller, a quarterback he went on to quarterback at UOP, and I was like first grade, and he would throw these bombs, and it was flag football. And John, why don't you talk about flag football a little bit, because not only flag football is starting to grow, but it's now going to be in the Olympics.
Yes, I heard last year about this time that they were going to start girls high school CIF flag football for the 2023-2024 school year, and I knew it was going to be super popular. They did an interest-only meeting at Menlo School for all interested high school girls that wanted to play flag football to show up, and Menlo had over 40 people that showed up to that meeting, and I was able to convince the athletic director that I should be the head coach, and I immediately tapped Steve Young on the shoulder and say, "Steve, will you help me?" He was going to have two daughters on the team, and I would have liked to have had Toy Cook coach, but he was too busy playing golf, so he couldn't join the coaching staff.
Well, rumor has it.
So it just really neat. Steve, kind of funny. Steve was not funny, but he had just got laid off with his job at ESPN as they were downsizing. So, Steve was looking for a job, and we offered this, great opportunity for coach high school girls football. But the girls were very welcoming to playing and also having us coach them. And we got tremendous amount of exposure for flag football, Menlo School, and the girls with all the local media stations. And they even picked up stories nationally with Steve kind of being our headliner on coaching girls flag football. So yes, it was a lot of fun. We went 15-1. We lost our first game, and then we put together a 15 game winning streak, and it was definitely kind of a highlight of the end of my high school coaching career, as that was my last team that I coached, and we ended in November, and then I've been doing real estate full time ever since then.
Well, that's a good segue to talk about what you're doing now. I just before we talk about your new profession, real estate in California, boy, that's prime real estate out there, because I spent a lot of time in California, so you're in a great field. But let's just talk, before you talk about real estate, you're the president of the NFL alumni, which I was the president, I think, 12 years ago. What's going on with the NFL alumni?
Dot, I've been trying to follow your footsteps, and just slowly. I'm a little bit behind you, but yes, you and I have the distinction of being the president of the NFL Alumni NorCal Association chapter, and we do, as you know, we raise money. Our moniker is Caring for Kids. We do a lot of events. Flag football, football clinics. We do golf tournaments. We just kind of get out in the community, and we have our offices here in Redwood City. And we still have your name up on the board as a past president. So that's been a lot of fun. We miss you. Hopefully, Dot, I know you've been great. Whenever you come into town, you stop by, and we do miss you. And one of the treats that I got to do this past year is be in the Redwood City Parade, and I was shown pictures of you when you got to be in the parade there. I learned Redwood City, their 4th of July parade, is the largest parade in Northern California. So there are a few perks to having that job, and also just kind of gets me out into the community, networking more, and seeing my old fellow football teammates or competitors that I played against. And yeah, it's a very worthwhile organization that's been around since the early 1970s.
Mm-hmm. Well, and John, let's go right into business. Because at Stanford, at this great university, we not only played sports, but we studied. And we look at our economy today. You look at there's residential real estate and there's commercial real estate, and I believe you're in the residential real estate arena, right? Correct?
Yes. I do actually both commercial and residential. So if someone is looking to buy or sell a property, I'm always open for referrals, and I'm supposed to tell you that I'm never too tired to take your referral. So in any case, wonderful market for residential real estate right now in the Bay Area, especially right here on the peninsula. San Francisco is struggling a little bit with their commercial real estate, as well as still trying to get a handle on their homeless issues. But yeah, I love it. And, I still go to all the Stanford games, and the coolest thing about my life with all these relationships that I've had with the players that I've coached and played with, is an opportunity for me to reach back, reconnect with them, and football, sports, and real estate are all relationship businesses, and I just love connecting with people and working with people that you like.
Well, yeah, there's no question. I call it relationship capital, which I think is more important than dollars, fiat currency. There's nothing like, having friends like you and all our Stanford friends, our NFL friends, our basketball friends. And I guess, with OnTheDot, we like to end it with you get the last word. And, there's probably a lot of people out there listening, especially young kids that, are thinking about a career in sports. And you might want to talk about how college sports has changed, John. I really would like to get your thoughts on. I mean, could you imagine if back when we played, we had the opportunities like NIL? I mean, I was watching last night, the commercials, all the commercials. I mean, you've got college players, and I think it's fantastic. But, you get the last word and just talk as long as you want about where college sports was when we came in, where it is today, and where you see it going. And again, there's a lot of kids out there that would I'm sure, love to hear your inspirational advice. So
Okay,
thank
well,
you.
I'm going to talk about two things. One thing is, I do, another important aspect that the NFL alumni is involved with now is, mental health. And I just know from all the coaching I've done on the high school level and the youth sports level, um, first and foremost, Dot, our kids need to have fun playing. The reason sports were created was for us to have fun. So sometimes I feel like too much emphasis is put on sports, on trying to make it to the next level or getting a high school scholarship or going pro. First and foremost, we're supposed to have fun. I always preach that with the high school teams that I play is, hey, the reason we're here is to have fun. So smile, don't get too, and that's what I liked about girls basketball too, is that, we would lose a game. Everyone would be disappointed, upset. But by the time we got into the van to drive back to the school, and by the time we got back home, everyone was kind of happy. They brushed it off. So kind of on the same other token, I want to kind of call you out, Mike, on how special of a friend you've been to my special needs son, Jack Paye, who's now 29 years old. And I'm so happy to report in my community here that when I was growing up, special needs kids were hidden or sent away to institutions for to learn and to live. Today, they are accepted into our community, and I'll tell you, Mike, Jack, by going to the normal school, or not normal school, the regular public schools down the street, so many people know Jack, and he's always been kind of right at my side when I was coaching these flag football teams or girls or boys basketball teams. And to have Jack so welcome in our community, and to have people such as you that are these big, kind of tough, strong guys for him to bounce off of is just so touching to me. As I was so worried that when I found out at 6 months that my son was going to be challenged his entire life with these disabilities, I was worried about some of the the kids that were ostracized, that were different growing up. But now we're accepting, and those were the two things I wanted to bring up last.
Well, you know what? I usually I want to we let you have the last word, and you're going to have the last word. But I had to have a shout out. Thank you for bringing Jack up. He's just such a great kid. And you mentioned mental health. I mean, as you know, many of us football players who played back in the day when we had the Oklahoma drill, we got hit in the head a few too many times. So there's no question, all of us need to, with the sciences and all the discoveries about the brain, everyone can make a contribution. And you hit the nail on the head. You got to have fun. You got to have fun, whatever you do. That's the most important. And then, you got to be part of a team. It's not about my game. The greatest thing, I mean, you and I, we didn't, we were on the team. You were on the 49ers and I was on the Raiders, and we both got Super Bowl rings, and we didn't play in the Super Bowl. So we were part of the team. But, I really think, John, I want to thank you for coming on the Dot, Champions on the Dot. You have an amazing career. And could you I just put down here for more information on you and what you're doing. Is this the correct link? JohnPaye.com?
JohnPaye.com. Thanks, Dot. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's the little scrolling. So anyone out there that wants to connect with John, whether you want to talk about sports or you want to talk about real estate or whatever, or get in touch with Jack, because Jack is amazing. He's great energy. And again, I want to give you the last opportunity. I know, but I want you to take it out, and then just don't hang up, because I want to kind of recap this. But there's 2 dates. You've got your charity event with the colon cancer, and you got the NFL alumni caring for kids. So could you share that with the audience, and then I'll go out behind the stage here. So thank you, John.
All right, thank you,
brother. Go Card.
Great. Right. So I just want to be able to promote 2 things. One is the colorectal cancer awareness event that I do on May 2nd. It's at the Stanford Park Hotel to promote getting screened for colon cancer. And my mom died of the disease, and she probably would still be alive today if she had gotten screened for cancer when you're supposed to, for colon cancer at age 45. Secondly, I also want to invite you all to our NFL alumni charity golf tournament. We're working on our 40th annual event on July 22nd. So call me or johnpaye.com, 650-906-3263. I can help you with real estate. I can help you with the golf tournament. And also I can get you tickets to the celebrity fashion show. Dot, this is the last thing. I would like to invite you to be a celebrity model, because you're so attractive with that shiny, bright head. We'd love to have you. And thank you for this opportunity on being on the dot. So that's it for me today.